Hello, wonderful people. Connor Whitmore here again with another interview for you on the Nawtystep channel, and I am joined by some very special guests today. We have Mr. Harvey Thompson, aka Chime,
Dead naming me, are you?
and we also have Mr. Eric Sale, aka Ace Aura,
It's me. How you doing?
with the official names. How are you guys doing? How have you been?
I've been pretty good. I'm in my last semester at UTD in school studying computer science, so I'm very excited to be done with school. This semester has been pretty crazy. I've been working on music, of course, doing schoolwork, playing a few drive-in shows. That's been interesting, but overall, been busy, but good busy.
Awesome. And yourself, Harvey?
Uh, yeah, I've been good. Been doing some kind of like Patreon stuff has been kind of keeping me afloat, which has been, I mean, anyone who supports me on there is just amazing because otherwise I'll be delivering pizzas or something. So, yeah, doing kind of tutorials, working on tunes, all the usual stuff, really.
Is I've heard that Patreon's kind of like having another job altogether. Would you say it's like that, or is it manageable?
I think it's manageable because honestly, as a music producer in 2020, there's so many different pieces of the job now. Like you got to be a social media manager. You've got to post like every day if possible. Then write the music, put together mixes, do video content. Like there's just there's all different kind of bits and pieces to it. So I'm used to having that kind of mixed bag of um, tasks to do really. So yeah, it hasn't been too difficult to implement, and also I've got loads more time because I'm not playing shows right now.
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Of course. As a kind of extension of that opening question, I just want to kind of touch base with both of you and ask how your respective lockdowns have been, and whether during the COVID period has being in lockdown kind of affected how you write music, your ideas, and just stuff like that. So, Eric, start with you.
Yeah, I think it's definitely shifted the way I write music, but it's really hard to put my finger on how. During lockdown, one of the first things I did was finish my Reset Environment EP. All the ideas on there are about a year and a half old as of the time it was released, and
Oh
so
wow.
finishing it up was a little bit difficult because it was like stuff that I already felt like I had kind of moved on from. But I finished that, and after that was done, I think I got a new burst of like inspiration to continue pushing my sound in new directions and trying stuff out. So a lot of the stuff that I have unreleased at the moment is me just kind of trying new things, and I think part of that was just having more time to try new things. And so I think it's been a net positive as far as creativity goes. In the beginning of lockdown, it was kind of hard for me to make music because I'm a big extrovert and I like being around people. And so not being able to hang out with friends or my girlfriend for a while was kind of rough. But after a bit of like channeling that into music, I think it was a positive overall.
Awesome. Awesome. That sounds good. And yeah, what about you, Harvey?
Yeah, well, as I say, I've had to kind of like convert my career a bunch because yeah, I mean, shows really was like the main source of income for me, and yeah, so I was like, when all this happened and I got like the entire uh co-headline tour with A5 cancelled and every other show cancelled, I was like, okay, what's the plan here? So yeah, I've just been doing like tuition and the Patreon stuff and tutorials and sample packs and things, and yeah, but that's been fulfilling in its own way. It's obviously a huge shame to not have the shows, but yeah, it's been kind of like I've had quiet time to kind of sit down and do these things that I've always kind of thought, oh, I'd be interested in doing some tutorials and stuff. But yeah, I've had the time to do that. And in terms of how my music's changed, um, I don't know. There was a kind of dip in motivation because I'm really at a point in my career when where I want to make music for the live experience as much as possible. So I think the first track I made, kind of start to finish through quarantine, was the brand new drum and bass tune, Lifelong, that went up on No Copyright Sounds, which is a complete departure from my current sound, but is a return to kind of where I started making music. So that kind of just happened because I was like, I'll make some drum and bass, you know.
A very uplifting number.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah, I don't know. It just kind of channeled sort of like 2012, just before me changing into dubstep, that kind of era.
Yeah, indeed. And like it just kind of surprises me even that you could write such a bright and colourful, uplifting, sprightly number in these dark times. Do you know what I mean? Did it ever get difficult writing something like that? Did you ever like hit a block with it? Or I mean, Eric, you can answer this as well if you ever had this with a particular track of yours that you've written since lockdown began.
I don't know if I'd say there was any particular track that I was working on that became harder to finish as a result of lockdown. But I think it just kind of put me in a mode of experimentation rather than completing the things I had already kind of been doing. And I think that's still continuing into now, through the entire lockdown experience and just like COVID and all that. I think having time away from shows has given me an opportunity to be like, where can I like continue to push my sound into the future? Because when I'm like focused on making stuff for like a live experience type thing, it's very easy to just kind of do what I've been doing because I know it kind of works. But I think now I've been trying to incorporate more influences from other genres like hard wave, trance kind of stuff in my newer music that I've been working on. I don't know. It's just I've been having fun, like more and more fun over time, just trying out new things because that's how I kind of discovered my Ace Aura sound in the first place. So
Do you resonate with that, Harvey?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the drum and bass tune being like uplifting, I often I listen back to a lot of my older music because I kind of love the nostalgia of, especially as a producer, if I've made a tune during a certain year or period of time, it takes me right back to that moment. If I listen back to it and what I was doing and what I was going through at the time, and I found that like actually my music was a lot more uplifting during like some of the darkest periods in my life, which is interesting. But I guess that's just how I've kind of responded to it. The music was always kind of like my glimmer of hope of becoming a career and having this dream job. So that's kind of how it came out with my music. So it's not surprising to me that lockdown has done a similar thing.
Awesome. Yeah, all makes sense. All makes sense. But yeah, let's get into the meat of the video, what we want to discuss in this interview. And you guys got in touch not too long ago wanting to discuss a particular subject or topic, that being melodic rhythm and color bass, kind of where it's at the moment, its sudden and recent upsurge in popularity, and kind of where it came from as well. And also, I suppose, for both of you to kind of give your perspective or account of it and kind of distinguish between the different kinds of understandings of melodic dubstep bass that we have. But with you two in particular, as a couple of the biggest kind of proponents of that kind of music at the moment, how does it feel, first off, just knowing as a thing in itself that it's picking up again quite a lot, given the kind of state or the way that dubstep and bass music in general has been for the last 3-4 years or so. Harvey, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, excited is the main thing. I was mentioning before we started the interview that like really my main drive is as a fan of dubstep to push this, and there's something really exciting about making that change, putting out that drop of water into the scene and letting the ripples kind of go through. And it's always been a sort of greater goal for me as a producer, especially that's become more apparent as a lot of the musicality and melodic nature of things has kind of been drowned out a little bit. So yeah, really, I wanted to like more a bigger percentage of dubstep, and if I could make that change with my own music and by helping others, like with all the artists on Rushdown and anyone else, then that's so exciting for me, and also it makes me enjoy dubstep more, my favorite genre of music. So yeah, that was really my motivation for it, and yeah, excited as hell.
Awesome. And yeah, Eric, like, how do you feel about the fact that it's such a well, for me anyway, as an outsider, someone who's kind of looking from, yeah, the outside in, and who is having to listen to everything, it definitely feels now at this moment like, yeah, it's really picking up again. So yeah, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, similarly to Harvey, I'm pretty excited. This is a sound that I've kind of had in my head since I started producing in 2012. Like, I remember listening to Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites as an eighth grader and being like, this would be really cool if it was more like chord based. And then since like 2018, I think is when I started developing that kind of like melodic rhythm sound, or whatever you want to call it. It's just like I've been trying to like hone it more and more and get it more like pinpointed to what I really envisioned in my head. And it's really cool to see others start to follow suit and things like that. Similar to Harvey, I think the scene lately has become largely like, I don't want to say it all sounds the same, but it all kind of feels the same, if that makes sense. Like, I don't even think the issue, I don't think it's anything like lack of skill, because if anything, I think the issue is that there's so many good producers doing similar things that it all like kind of runs into like a wash of sameness almost. And I think at this point, when everyone's really good at making dubstep, what really makes people stand out is to do something different and innovate. And I think that's kind of what put the scene in the state it's in now. Like, we wouldn't have bro step and like the kind of like bro step rhythm hybrid that we have now if it weren't for Skrillex. But I'm just excited to be at a point where I'm like trying to help others innovate, because that's kind of what really brought me into the scene, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. All makes sense. And sticking with you, Eric, just for a quick little offshoot question. Was there ever a point, would you say, in the last, 2 or 3 years or so, when, your sound was really building, that you felt like you couldn't do exactly what you wanted to do, and that you had to kind of, you know, shape your sound in a way that it would be maybe appreciated by more people?
I don't think I've had that experience in a very strong way, but I think for anybody that's trying to make music into a career, there's going to be a large temptation to cater your music to what everybody already enjoys. And that's oddly enough kind of what started the melodic rhythm sound. What I was doing at first from like 2018, when I kind of started developing like the melodic sound design that I have now, is more bro step based. Like, you could hear it was mostly like snares in my music. But then as time went on and it got closer to now, I was kind of using like the kick clap style of drums and stuff like that. And I think um, I definitely was influenced by what's popular right now, but I think it was for good. If I wasn't thinking about the fact that rhythm was kind of like popping off right now and I wanted to follow that trend, I probably wouldn't have made Coma. And so I think there was definitely an influence of outside sounds and outside trends into the way I make music, but I think it resulted in me making something that I wouldn't have otherwise made in a positive way.
Sure, sure. And yeah, Harvey, has there ever been a time, or times maybe plural, where you felt like you can't actually make what you want to make, and you have to kind of, yeah, just shape it for general consumption?
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to kind of push that as much as possible. But there was definitely a point when I really cemented myself as, I want to be in between melodic and heavy stuff, because really, whenever I'm listening to a fully just melodic tune, I'm like, I need some kind of basses and fun and kind of aggression here. And when I'm listening to something that's completely heavy, I'm like, I need some like musicality and stuff. So yeah, I've always wanted to be in that kind of center position, and really it was Skrillex with Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites that was that kind of beginning of that sound, and that's really where I'd say the beginning of color bass was really. Um, so yeah, there's always a pressure to go either way though, because I always thought like you have to go all the way heavy or all the way melodic, because if you're mixing the two, you're kind of confusing your audience. But really, I saw that work with Skrillex, and as more people were pushed to either side, I was like, I'm going to stay right here because that's what sets me apart now. Yeah, so that's kind of my ethos on it, really.
Cool, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. It must have been. Well, it must be quite. Do you kind of, was there a particular moment where you realised, if you remember, Harvey, was there a particular moment where you were like, yeah, this is like the pathway and like the way that I want my music to go and where I want it to go down, or was it just like, was it quite natural? Was it a bit of a light bulb moment, would you say?
Um, yeah, well, I've always had that combination, and it's always excited me the prospect of getting something melodic onto a heavy label, um, which was what I was doing with Firepower initially, and that's where I got a lot of my kind of start really in the scene. And it was just fascinating for them to take an EP called From Fairies to Fire, which was in its way um, a reference to Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, and really just had this pink, twinkly, girly sound going into this kind of fiery thing. And I was like, there's no way they're going to take this, but they did, and that's kind of given me the confidence to continue that with my releases in general, and going, there's no way Disciple are going to want this stuff. There's no way, right? And then I send it to them, and they're like, hell yeah. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think what really cemented it, at my kind of ambition for that and keeping that side of things alive, was when I first started playing shows in the US in 2017. And initially I was just excited to be there and excited to be starting kind of my career really full time. But then I had kind of a sense of disappointment setting in that I kind of missed the wave of dubstep that I really enjoyed. And that's when I kind of told myself, you know, I've got to, if no one else is going to keep it alive, if other artists are going to abandon their melodic side, I'll take the torch. I'll do it. Like, yeah, um, yeah. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely, very much. And you mentioned you mentioned there color base, which is a term obviously that you yourself coined. And from an outside perspective, I mean, for me as well, like kind of looking in, thinking about melodic rhythm, thinking about color bass, how they kind of, you know, obviously they exist alongside one another. But I think a lot of people, myself included, do kind of want to know about the differences between the two and how they might have came about, and kind of like from your perspectives where that originates and where it kind of starts out, and just how it's progressed over the last, I don't know, decade or so, we can say. But yeah, Harvey, just sticking with you, what would you say if we're thinking about melodic rhythm now, how many people are kind of interpreting it? How are we, you know, distinguishing it from color bass, which you coined yourself?
Yeah, well, color bass I think is less of a genre name and more of a just guidance, really. So I would say I started using it because I wanted to differentiate my music from what a lot of people started to associate as melodic dubstep, which was like Seven Lions, Millennium, Said the Sky, those kind of artists. And I felt, you know, my music was still melodic, but it didn't fit into that category. So I wanted to kind of come up with a new name for it. And as things were getting kind of more atonal and gritty and heavier, those kind of tunes, because I don't know if I have like synesthesia or if I just think of music in a certain way, but um, that kind of lack of musicality, even though it can be really cool, just seems like monochrome to me. So that's really where the idea for color bass came in, because that's really how I visualized the more melodic stuff. Yeah, so the way it differs from melodic rhythm, really color bass is just like a blanket term for anything that kind of mixes the heavy stuff and the melodic stuff. So yeah, I'd count like early Skrillex as color bass. I'd count like Subscape 501, even like Gemini and those kind of early artists as color bass. Yeah, so it's just kind of yeah, it's guidance rather than like a genre name. And melodic rhythm is different in that it's kind of a more niche area. And really it's just tracks that take influence from the melodic side and from rhythm and tries to combine them. And that can be a broad spectrum of things as well.
So when we say color bass, are we incorporating like D&B and house and other genres? Are we just saying the kind of stuff that dubstep producers do for the most part, or yeah?
Well, that was one of the early thoughts behind it as well, is that could incorporate like electro house and stuff, but it's difficult. It's difficult when you're trying to tag things and brand them. So color bass is, as you know, I think it can incorporate those things as well. It's not like so BPM specific as dubstep might be, but yeah, you can if you want or not. That's how loose of a term it is, really.
Eric, what would you, from your perspective, yeah, how would you kind of do you resonate with what Harvey's saying, or do you see even more obvious differences than between like color bass, melodic rhythm, all these terms we've got going on?
Gotcha. Yeah. I think so. Color bass was definitely a term that Harvey coined before I was even like releasing on Rushdown or anything like that. So that's like, I guess, before my time, if you want to say that. And so that wasn't really something I really helped coin. But I think the melodic rhythm thing is kind of what I'm trying to focus on for like branding of my sound. I think how I would define that sound is just a combination of more melodic sound design with kind of today's status quo of like the rhythm kind of thing, like the kind of default in the dubstep scene right now. And so I think color bass is much more of an all-encompassing term, where it's more of like it can be electro house or it can be dubstep, and like there's some like a ton of different ways to do it. But I think melodic rhythm, it would almost be like a subsect of that, where it's more focused on rhythm sound design, rhythm drums, that kind of thing.
We touched on this before we started the interview itself, but where does it, you know, Harvey, you've been around a little bit longer, but where does it start exactly? You know, we're talking about, you know, we've had the discussion with other artists who would argue, you know, it started way before Rushdown, started even before the kind of bro step blow up, if you get me. But yeah, where in your eyes, for each of you, we'll start with you, Eric, again, but when are we saying that this is beginning, if you will? Like, where does it come from?
So I wanted to coin the term. I think when I released my track Coma is when I specifically said melodic rhythm for the first time. But I do think there would be examples of that kind of sound before I started even like producing that kind of music. The one that comes to mind, there is a track called Candy Cane Oasis by an artist named Dumu. He makes mostly future bass, but I remember hearing that was like many years ago, probably like 2016, 15, that area. But he made this track that was kind of like combining rhythm sound design with future bass. And I was like, this is super cool. But that was like before I even started making that kind of stuff. But I would definitely look to that as kind of like the first example I heard of kind of like what melodic rhythm sounds like now. But as far as like the OG stuff, Scary Monsters and Night Sprites definitely isn't a rhythm by any means. But I think that kind of the thoughts and the ideas in that are stuff that I try to incorporate in my music, where he's combining a lot of melodic stuff with the heavier stuff. I just try to do it more in a way that is like, I think typically what's done is like there are melodic elements paired with heavy elements. I'm trying to make them into like one element, if that makes sense. And so I do tend to use that term more for my own stuff, but there are definitely examples that I've seen outside of my music, even before I started making that kind of stuff, that stand out.
With Melodic Riddim, do you think there's scope for saying that it was potentially around maybe before, Rushdown, and you were, really trying to push it forward, or is there a definite starting point for you?
It's yeah. I mean, it's a slippery term because you could count something like "When I Look at You" by Imalkai as kind of melodic rhythm. It's got rhythm elements. It's got the kick clap. It's got the kind of similar repeating structures to the basses, but it's playing melodies. Um, but I think what we're really zoning in on is the is the new kind of term of it, um, that really, like, Eric was kind of pretty revolutionary with I think Coma really was the start of this new wave of the sound. I think there were other tunes in the past, like the Dumu one that you mentioned, that I listened to and I was like, whoa, this is early for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the code being cracked was really I'd say Fabricator was kind of getting there, and
Yeah,
then
kind of.
it was interesting seeing that development from my end of Eric's tunes, because the Wait for Me remix was kind of it, but like I could tell there was like more we could do with it. And then it just kind of developed from there. But I think Coma is really the turning point, and more recently, as a complete offshoot of these kind of sound design techniques, what Papakana's been doing has been the sort of new realization of how we can make something count as melodic rhythm. So yeah, I it's there's a couple of different kind of, I think those are the main milestones in this happening. um yeah, but yeah, you can class old stuff as that as well. It That's just how music kind of evolves and emerges, really.
Definitely, definitely. For the present now, and even like the last couple of years, I wanted to kind of know from you guys whether you think there have been significant changes within that period. So if we're talking about guided wandering, we're talking about Rushdown. Do you guys see there as having been significant changes within that time so far, or has it been kind of similar kind of stuff for the last 3 years? If we're talking about Melodic Riddim in particular. So Eric, would you reckon?
I personally think there has been a lot of evolution in that sound. Kind of like I was saying before, what I've been trying to do all these years is like combine the melodic and heavy sounds into one thing. And I think in like the Guided Wandering EP era, I was still at the point where I was kind of like separating it, where like there were heavy elements, there were melodic elements. But I think Coma is the first track that I released where I was like, all right, this really like works, because I'd released songs before Coma that kind of had the like melodic bass sound as the main element, but I don't think any of them got to near the like heaviness factor that I wanted as much as Coma did. And so I think that's probably so far I'd say like a climax in the sound that I've been trying to build. um like I said, the Reset Environment EP is full of ideas that are older than Coma. And so I think my releases after that point are going to be much more representative of what I've been trying to build after I've made Coma and things like that. It's definitely been, I've kind of felt a little bit stuck because it's like I'm trying to figure out how to top what I made before, which isn't really a great mindset to be in for creativity. But I am excited to see in the future how I continue to like push the sound and make it into more of what I've just like envisioned in my head all this time.
Sure. And if you, Eric, if you could say, I mean, obviously you're not, you haven't been in the game as it were as long as Harvey has. You're younger, but what were you, just as a kind of I don't know, reference point? What were you listening to as soon as you became interested in this kind of, melodic heaviness? Like what? Who do you see as the main influences on where the sound's at right now?
Okay. As far as what I've been trying to do with Melodic Riddim, guys like Must Die, I think he'd be my number one influence as far as musical style. I've always loved how he combines melody with heavier sounds, just like ever since I found his music in like 2012, 2013 or whatever. But I think he has a really big influence on the way I make my music, with kind of incorporating things from different genres and trying to create almost like a sense of, like, the way he kind of does his stuff is like there's like a duality to his music. You've got like the more melodic intro with like a heavier drop or stuff like that, where I try to like just combine everything in one. So I've definitely taken a lot of influence from him. Skrillex, of course, was a big one, and he kind of did the same thing where it was like there was melodic stuff in there, but it was separate from the heavier stuff. And I think there were definitely influences there that contributed to where the sound is now. But I think pushing it beyond that and kind of trying to combine elements rather than having them separate has been kind of the distinguishing factor in how the sound has grown lately.
Yeah, Harvey, going back to that original question of whether you felt there's been, within this last 3-4 years or so, when it's really kind of been formulating this style of music, yeah, do you think there has been significant evolution within that period so far? Do you think it's yet to come? Yeah, what would you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of slowly building from like Eric and what he was doing, and then from there that kind of spread throughout the Rushdown roster, and it was interesting to hear such a kind of like fresh sound, and then everyone kind of go, ooh, okay, let's figure out what this is for us, and infusing some of their own kind of personality into it and what they're known for. So like Caval has picked up similar sound design, similar outskirts. Millennial Trash, who's a good friend of ours as well. Yeah, and it's been interesting to see, yeah, that just kind of spread through Rushdown, because we were all kind of going for a similar kind of vibe with our music, and this was just a beautiful way of like marrying these two styles together. So yeah, and from there, I think there was kind of a separate thing happening with Riddim where, kind of on Ulasil's side of things, and yeah, I'd say like Akios, those kind of guys doing the more kind of bleepy stuff and really bringing melody into Riddim in a completely, taking a different doorway in. It's really interesting that those kind of two ways in from two kind of different sides of the genre have met at this point in 2020, and that's really exciting, because we've ended up from two different paths ending up in this kind of similar field. Yeah, I guess to quote any other people making stuff, like Devath, is doing kind of the more bleepy stuff, UK as well. But yeah, I would group those together. But they're so different in different ways. And of course, Papa Khan doing basically like tropical house, mixing that into dubstep and rhythm. It's just, yeah, it's really exciting. Having all of these different avenues being taken into this kind of new mix of genres.
100%. And you earlier you mentioned MLK actually, and so for you, if thinking about when you yourself started getting into heavy electronic music, yeah, who else from your experience or perspective is like such an important and integral figure in that kind of music being so prevalent today, or even 5-7 years ago?
I'd say Xylent was a big one, because
Ooh, yeah.
there were melodies being played. Rusko is a very melodic producer, and back then, there were melodies. Woo Boost is an absolute banger because it's got a really memorable riff. But it was interesting to hear Xylent, and he came from the drum bass side of things as well, and he had such a unique kind of method of sound design. The first tune I heard was Choose Me 2, and that was really the first time I heard a super saw that really I was just kind of blown away by it, because I was like, you can do that with dubstep, that works. Yeah, so that was that was kind of mind blowing, and seeing him develop his sound in that way, in such a musical way as well, was very influential for me, moving from drum bass even as well. Because I was terrified of sound designing initially, because I didn't have massive or I didn't have any of that stuff. So everything was musical for me at the beginning, and knowing that people like him and Seven Lions initially were doing kind of a mix and still having it be very melodic and chord based, that was exciting, and that's what kind of got me into producing dubstep for myself. I'd also quote Fox Stevenson in terms of the more kind of riff based dubstep. He's really been the one to kind of innovate there, and also mix melodies with more harmony, and using a bass that has two different notes at the same time. Like Miss You is a great example of that, where you've got the main lead melody up here, but at the same time there's a separate melody being played for the bass notes. And that's kind of that's a kind of another avenue into melodic rhythm almost, because it's that trying to merge those melodies into what you're doing with the basses, rather than have them playing separate roles.
I mean, we've got some names from Harvey there, in terms of at the moment who is, well, he said the past stuff as well, but who at the moment is really kind of killing it in that melodic riddim scene and sphere. But yeah, Eric, I'd love to hear from you. Besides yourself, of course, who you think is bringing the genre forward, and yeah, really giving it a good name at the moment.
Yeah, a few names come to mind. The first two would be Skybreak and Sharks. They're both absolutely killing it, and I'm glad they're starting to get more attention. Both of them recently got Disciple releases off of the latest remix competition they did, so I was really excited to see that. But I think both of them are really pushing the melodic rhythm sound in a way that is unique to them and that I'm really enjoying. Skybreak is doing much more of like a natural type sound, where it feels like much more organic than my stuff does or a lot of other people's. And then Sharks is doing like a lot of like the a pluckier type sound design that I really enjoy as well. So I think they're both really like killing it in their own way that doesn't necessarily sound like what's already been done in the melodic rhythm sphere of things. Another would be, I don't know, he's not like, you might not know who he is, but he formerly went by DJ Mike CW. Now he goes by Mike Shift. His stuff is like super cool. He has like all sorts of influences outside of EDM. I believe he plays like piano or keyboard at his church, so it's got a lot of gospel influences in it. A lot of like chord based sound design and stuff. If you haven't checked it out, I definitely would. I think those three names would be the ones that I'd cite as like the ones that are like pushing the sound.
I'd probably throw into that kind of similar category Killing Void as well. He's been kind of taking another route in with he's actually been kind of avoiding the resonators and the convolution reverb techniques of us, and trying to put tonality into his stuff in a really interesting way as well. He was also on the Disciple remix compilation as well.
Labels aside from Rushdown that you think like what are you guys making of Halcyon and what they're trying to do with this specific kind of music? Harvey, stay with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full support of what they're doing. Like honestly, it's such a different. I've mentioned that they've come from kind of a different angle into this kind of spectrum we're working in, and that really reflects in terms of the kind of artists that are releasing there, and their kind of take on this kind of new style. Other than that, labels. Just anyone who's supporting the melodic rhythm artists right now. I mean, I think Disciple are gearing up to kind of give a bit more of a push to this as well. They've certainly helped with pushing it by, you know, releasing me and Eric's collab Interdimensional, um, and like my tunes like Unicorn Blood. Um, yeah, anyone who gives a chance to do this kind of weird mix of styles is really helping. Um, yeah, but Exobolt have also put out some Melodic Riddim tunes, and is it Rail Breakers as well?
Yeah, Rail Breakers.
It's a great tune by Caval called Hell that is just, it's a darker take on it, and that's what's really interesting, is because, you know, a lot of the Melodic Riddim stuff ends up being quite uplifting and sparkly and stuff, but Caval's tune is still melodic, but is dark and spooky, and I really like that.
Just kind of wrapping up here, I wanted to actually talk just briefly about the relationship between you guys and Eric. First of all, as a kind of offshoot question again, like, how did you find your particular sound, and then beyond that, what has it been like having the guidance of someone like Harvey to kind of help you hone that sound and really run with it, especially at a time where, you know, it wasn't as popular, and the thing that was, you know, really at the forefront was quite far removed, I think anyone would say, from what you were going for and what you're still going for. So yeah, would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think I started really trying to like put together. Well, I guess I started like I had that vision ever since I started making music, but it really started coming together in 2018, and that was around the time that Harvey had asked me to release on Rushdown, because I had gotten second place in his remix contest for Wait For Me. And so I think the timing of that was like perfect, because it gave me a place to release that kind of music when there wasn't really one available other than Rushdown at the time, because nobody was really like, it was just a new thing, and I was a small artist, so it was not going to go anywhere else. And so I'm very grateful for Harvey like opening up to the idea of me releasing on Rushdown, and I'm glad my sound fit there. And I think after releasing there, I just started to like continue to develop the sound more and more. And I think if I hadn't released in Rushdown, I don't think I would have had as much inspiration to work off of to build the sound that I eventually came to. Because whether we like it or not, as humans in general, we're just influenced by what we're around. And I think regularly talking to the Rushdown guys, talking to Harvey in particular about music, and just like throwing ideas back and forth, that really helped me shape the sound that I ended up developing and continue to develop. And so I think one of the big catalysts for me kind of like developing the vision for Melodic Riddim and like putting it where it is now in my music is through starting to release on Rushdown and through like talking to Harvey and stuff like that.
With your music, would you say that, what would you say you start with? Do you start with melody generally, or do you start with a beat, or does it differ every time, or what would you go with?
Interestingly enough, I think it's different every time, but most of the time lately, I've started with a concept, and like outside of music, like I'll start with an idea that I want to portray through my music. And I think that's kind of how Coma started, because that was written the summer of 2019, I believe. Yes, that sounds right. Where I think I had a lot of realizations about like the current state of my life, and kind of just where I felt like I had been growing lately, and how much more alive and awake I felt versus like earlier in life. And so that was the inspiration behind Coma. And then I wanted to create a song that kind of encapsulated that feeling. And so most of my songs, well, I don't know if I'd say most. I think most of the songs that I'm most proud of start with a concept. But if I don't start with a concept, usually I'll start with like a melody is usually the first thing I start with. I want to start working with sound design more, because like, kind of like I said a little bit earlier, I'm starting to get kind of bored with what I've been doing as far as sound design. I think there's still so much more potential in Melodic Riddim and what can be done there, because it's such a new thing. And sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but to directly answer your question, I'll usually start with like a concept or a melody. Those are like the two things that are usually the main things.
Sure. And Harvey, what's your how do you go about your creation mostly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar with the concepts. Honestly, like, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago where I really started grabbing a hold of that. And now most of my tunes kind of end up either starting with a concept or ending up with one. So I think like a good example is Wrong Warp, because I try and get very specific as well with concepts. Wrong Warp is a speedrunning technique. Specifically, its use in Super Mario Brothers 3 is the influence for that tune. Basically speedrunning technique where you glitch the game so it warps you straight to the credits and you beat the game in like a couple of minutes. And in Super Mario Brothers 3, you set up these pixel perfect precision things in this like specific area, and then you kick a Koopa shell and it all goes to pot, and like the screen scrolls and it's just glitchy and messy and colorful and all over the place. And I was like, that would be a really cool idea for a tune, especially to go on an EP called Interdimensional. And that tune actually started right after me and Eric and James Millennial Trash met up in Dallas, and we just kind of like sharing tunes and ideas and showing each other sound design techniques and that sort of thing. And so that I literally just got back to the place I was staying and just went, right, I'm going to try out all this new stuff. So props to Eric for for showing me Resonators.
What has it been like for you, kind of watching Eric grow so fast, so quickly, getting recognized so much, having his music, appreciated and played out by so many big producers, and having yourself obviously played such a big role in that as the owner of Rushdown and one of the main proponents, if not the main proponent of that style of music. So yeah, how's that been?
I feel very thankful to be in a position where I can offer those kind of opportunities to smaller artists, and often I feel sort of more proud, especially as Eric was mentioning his kind of come up through Rushdown. I kind of feel more proud of that in a sense than my own music and my own career, because it's me being able to spread it through other producers that are coming up with brand new things, and I think that's just as, if not more exciting than building your own career, is being part of a movement. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that I've gotten all of these producers into the same place with Rushdown. And really it is a constant. We have a Facebook chat that is just constantly going on and trying new ideas out and trying new sound design techniques. And I'm incredibly thankful and proud of that. And I just think it's so much better than just going, I'm going to keep this secret to myself. No one's going to have it, and I'm going to profit from it. It's like, no, like bounce off, have it like be a starting point. In the same way that dubstep was in a tiny record shop in Croydon in like the 2000s.
Right.
And having kind of my own version of that and being a part of that community and having the platform to actually help other people, connect other people, is just beautiful. It's my favorite thing about having a music career and a following, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I can't really imagine a more rewarding thing in music. Really, it just sounds so enriching as a thing to do. Has it ever crossed your mind, Eric, about potentially opening up a label or movement or imprint of some sort?
Yes, but the ideas are still very basic. So like, I have had ideas that my manager has helped and given me as far as what we could do with a label imprint in the future. But I think right now, as far as time goes, I just wouldn't really have the time. I would want to be able to focus more time and energy into starting that than I have at the moment. But I do have certain ideas. One idea that we had that's still kind of in the works, that we don't really have details for how we would implement it, is just like starting a label that's more focused on really good music that other established labels reject. And I don't know how I would brand that or how I would like create a consistency through that. But that was an idea that we had that I might work on in the future.
I just want to interject. That is exactly how Rushdown started.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it started initially as just a label imprint for me to put my own stuff on, but then
Hmm.
I was literally like, I'm just gonna get all my friends involved and just release all the stuff that the other labels won't take, and
Yeah.
that's where it. But before it even kind of zoned in on color bass or melodic stuff, that was really all it was.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's a great way to start a label because you end up with a load of releases.
Yeah, it's genius, dude. Yeah, I just don't know what kind of sound, like how I would brand that sort of label. Because like the
Yeah.
melodic rhythm thing, like we've already got Rushdown. I don't want to make a Rushdown 2. And so like I don't know what I would actually do with the label at this point.
I think you should just make a pirate step label. Personally, I mean, if you want, if you're feeling it, just a label
Perfect.
dedicated
Oh, it's
to pirate
Slowdown.
step. See how that goes. But yeah, a couple more small questions for each of you. Stick with you, Eric, and then move to Harvey. But yeah, what have you got lined up coming up that we can know of? I imagine there are things that we're not allowed to know, but
Yes, there are.
but what have you got kind of lined up that you could possibly tell us in the near immediate future?
So what I've been working on, I have finished singles lately. That one of which is on a project that I don't know if I'm able to announce yet. I believe Harvey's got one on the project as well.
Yes, and a
Okay.
lot of the other artists we've mentioned in this interview.
Yes.
I don't think we can say anything, but
I don't think so either.
very excited about that.
But cool stuff is happening soon on a certain label. So that's that. I've got a lot of collabs that I've finished / been working on. I'll just list off a few to give just kind of a teaser. I finished a collab with Dr. Rosie recently. That'll be coming out, I believe, next month. I finished one with Trinergy that I believe comes out next month as well. Then I have one with Tynan that is in progress that he just passed back to me today to work on. So that's gonna
I've
be
heard
fun.
that one. It's good.
It's fun. But yeah, a lot of collabs at the moment. And of course, I've been working on the stuff that I've been doing solo has been very different. And I'm not sure how to feel about it. Like it's still Ace Aura, but it doesn't feel as melodic rhythm as some of my stuff has been. It almost feels more like Voltra and like a combination of that and kind of hard wave stuff, which I'm excited about, but I'm not sure how it fits or if I'm going to release it and stuff like that. But we'll see. A lot of experimentation.
Awesome. That's what we want in many a way. But yeah, Harvey, what have you got in the old pipeline that you are allowed to talk about?
So, yeah.
He has to think about this one. He has to think about this one.
it's the not wanting to announce things too.
Oh, of
early,
course.
But I may have announced them in other places that are going to come out at a certain point. Yeah, I don't think he minds. Oh yeah, I mentioned on Twitter. I have a tune with Flux Pavilion, which I mean has got to be the biggest like collab of my career so far. That I'm very excited about, and yeah, I just feel like it's the perfect combination of our styles. And I just want to tell you, like, because I was in the studio physically with him last year, and he got the the gold dust chords out as massive patches for the gold dust chords, and the tingles
Yeah, oh my
through
word.
my body.
That's
I
mad.
was like, oh my god. Yeah, and we ended up using some of that in the tune, and yeah, that's something I'm very excited about. I've got a feeling it's been pushed back because of things going on at Circus right now. But yeah, there's that. On the Rushdown side of things, we are going to release another color-based compilation at the end of the year, collecting tunes for that now. And there's that big secret thing that me and Eric are on, and I'll be putting out a drum and bass tune at some point as well.
NAWTY.
Yeah, there'll be things. There'll be bits and pieces.
Flux Pavilion seems like a really sound bloke. Is that
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, what's he like kind of working with?
Lovely. Yeah, he's really nice. An interesting thing that you mentioned when we were in the studio, he was like, right, what I want to do is I want to leave Flux Pavilion outside the studio. I want to leave Chime outside the studio. We're just two guys, and we're going to make a tune, and not worry too much about how it comes out. Just see what happens. And I like that kind of no pressure environment for making tunes. I was going to say something. Oh yeah, the Pixel Terror and Terminite collab, three-way between us three, is basically finished, and the hype for that is ridiculous. I get messages every goddamn week going, when is that coming out? What are you guys doing with your lives right now? Why aren't you finishing it? So that's another thing we're going to try and get out by the end of this year.
Awesome. So quite a lot from both of you, even in the remaining 2.5 months or so of the year. So that's big. But yeah, finally here, just wrapping up on this subject and topic in particular, which is what the kind of bulk of this interview has been about. Is there anything else that you want to say about it to kind of round up your own views and thoughts on the whole matter and kind of where you stand on it? Eric?
As far as Melodic Riddim goes, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just really excited for the future. Like, I think because it is so new, we still have no idea where it's going to go and what it's going to end up sounding like and what other sorts of avenues it's going to open up. Like, when you think about it, like, garage led to dubstep, led to rhythm, led to melodic rhythm. We have no idea where it's going to go next. And that's really exciting to me. Like, I have no idea how long I'll be a part of the scene, because that's not something I can 100% control. But, like, I'm just excited to see, however long I'm on this earth, where dubstep goes in the future from here.
Amazing. And
I'm very much the same, honestly. Yeah, it's really just excitement. It's just excitement, and yeah, I'm just really proud to be a part of it. I'm proud to help artists like Eric and everyone else on Rushdown, and yeah, I'm really happy with the trajectory and where this kind of style is going.
Sick. Awesome. Well, it's been a fantastic discussion about a very hot topic at the moment. I think everyone will kind of agree on that. But yeah, it was great to get your thoughts on this subject and where you both think it's at the moment, where it's came from, and how it's kind of evolved to where it is right now, all the people pushing it forward, and making sure that the melody is coming back to this genre and giving it life and flavour again. It's been a difficult few years, I would have to say, but it feels good again to kind of, slap the headphones on and get exploring again. But no, thank you guys very much. Again, yeah, great conversation. And to all of you watching as well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And guys, if you want to sign off in your own way, little wave or whatever you would do. Or
oh, the pressure.
What's the Ace Aura wave? What's the Chime wave? What's the way of signing off for each of you?
Adios.
Nice, I like that. That's original. He keeps it original.
That's the one.
Yeah, I guess just thanks so much, Connor, for having us, and yeah, being a fantastic interviewer. We knew you'd be great. Yeah, and doing everything you're doing with the channel. I watch it all the time. I don't know about you, Eric. You better say yes.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. All the new videos.
No, I think his channel is shit, Harvey. I told you not to mention it.
Why did we do this interview, dude?
Why am I here?
Yeah, it's an important job, man. Being a music critic in a genre that's not being criticized very much, I guess, or critiqued, I guess is a better word. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to do a salute. That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, I love that. One of them. I think people should do that more in pictures. Do you know what I mean? I think there should be more of that.
Yeah, not like.
No, not like. Okay, maybe
like...
not proper like. Aye, Captain. One of them.
Yeah.
So, but no, yeah.
I'll keep that in mind. Actually, I'll keep that. Pictures.
I think
I've overused the gun fingers now.
Oh, you love one of them. You absolutely love one of them. Thank you guys again, and thank all of you for watching. And if it's naughty, then and I will see all of you legends in the next one. Peace.